Hello again and welcome to another edition of The Public Interest, a weekly discussion forum where we focus on current affairs issues, policies and programs of the government. As usual with us this morning is the President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, His Excellency Brigadier David Granger. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Gomati.
We have two local journalists joining us this morning. They are to my extreme left, Ms. Zoisa Fraser from the Stabroek News and Mr. Paul Moore from the National Communications Network. Welcome.
Beautiful, thank you.
Mr. President, you have just returned, as a matter of fact, just last night, you returned from the Caribbean Energy Security Summit, which was held in Washington, D.C. Even as your administration pushes for the development of a green economy, what steps can Guyana take to achieve a more secure, affordable, and clean energy future? And how do you see government supporting and promoting these initiatives?
Well, Gomati, there are a lot of steps we have to take. Guyana is not ahead of the race. I think for years we've been locked into low carbon development strategy, which in itself does not answer all of the questions facing Guyana, especially those posed by climate change. The most important thing and the lesson that I brought away from Washington, apart from the fact that other Caribbean countries are well ahead, Jamaica, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts, Nevis, is that one, we have to, at a national level, make a determined effort to get rid of this, what I call addiction to petroleum. We're addicted to petroleum, and whenever we look for power, we look to see a generator or something like that. We have to take solar energy seriously. We have to deal seriously with wind power, especially along the coastline. We have to deal with the great hydropower potential of this country, which is unequal in the Caribbean. We have to deal with biomass coming out of our rice and sugar plantations. And I think in these ways, we'll be able to move more decisively into producing sustainable energy for our communities. We are way behind, and I think in the past we've been handing out a few solar panels to households. We need to start thinking about solar farms. We need to start thinking about wind farms, so that within a conceivably short period of time, maybe 10 years or so, Guyana could actually reduce its dependency on fossil fuels and increase its use of renewable sources of energy, particularly solar, wind, and water, which are in abundance. That's my lesson. That's the lesson I brought from Washington.
And sir, just last week we actually saw the Uricale Laboratories opening a fully powered solar-powered building. And you did say at that event that the private sector has a role to play in this. Could you expand a bit more on that?
Well, the whole country has to play a role, not just the private sector. I was glad that one laboratory has done so, but it simply set the pace for other agencies, which produce, which are involved in manufacturing, and also for the entire government sector, schools, hospitals, police stations, the university. We all have to think solar. We all have to think renewable energy. So. It's not just a job for the private sector. There has to be a national effort. And I must admit as president of this country that right now the effort is not national in scale and scope. But I expect that over the next 3 years we will be able to move along much more quickly. This is essential. This is not, it's not a matter of option anymore. Whether we choose petroleum or renewable energy, we have to go renewable.
Thank you, sir. Journalists, you can now pose your question on exploring the importance of the development of a green economy.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, in the same vein, governments are called on to create the enabling environment. What are the immediate plans your government have on the table to advance most of the things you've talked about to really get this green economy moving?
Well, mainly it is, first of all, providing the sort of education and exposure to students, to teachers, to other operators in the public and private sector, so they know what is available, have exhibitions, and that sort of thing. Secondly, to reduce tariffs on all equipment that would be used to generate renewable energy. We did this when we were embarking on the information technology revolution. We just removed tariffs on computing equipment. We must do the same now for power generating equipment. And third, we must take the lead in government business, buildings, parliament buildings, university, and so on. We must take the lead by actually converting these premises into buildings which use renewable energy within the next 24 months. Those are some of the steps I would take: legislative, educative, and organizational.
Zoisa.
Good morning, Mr. President. You have mentioned a number of steps that government would take to reach this goal. But is there a specific project that you plan to begin right now?
I think you're pulling me out on Bartica. Yes, I am working towards making Bartica a sort of model community which could display all of the aspects and all of the measures for implementing that sustainable renewable energy policy. That is to say, using wind, using solar, using water, using biomass particularly, so that we can have students go there, we can have businessmen go there and see renewable technology at work. So yes, there is a plan to convert Bartica into Guyana's first green town. And also there is a plan, and you might have heard me speak on previous occasions about the need to incorporate the Irokama project into Guyana's economy more fully than it has been in the past. It is not a project that we allow to be run by foreigners. It is ours. We must own it. And I do believe that that Irokama Center will be at the heart of our sustainable energy policy in the future.
Yes, Mr. President, you know money answers all things. Coming out of that summit, was there any structured financing talk to advance these initiatives? The ecological services are more important in advancing a green economy, and financing, and maybe even the role of maybe not only the local private sector, the Caribbean private sector being a part of the CARICOM body. How we plan to move forward, or rather how you plan to advance in this direction?
Well, Paul, I would say that in the first instance, Guyana has not kept abreast with the other CARICOM states. The process that I participated in this week had been going on for well over 2 years, and some of the other CARICOM states have benefited from that process financially. I would say, even for the amount of money that is, excuse me, is likely to be advanced by the United States, it would be inadequate. We have to learn to rely on our own resources, and I believe that's a good lesson for Guyana. Don't depend on other people to help us. Secondly, there was a dimension to the conference which allowed the business community, the private sector, to display or to discuss and expose some of their projects and programs to the Caribbean heads. And again, we will be looking to engage with the private sector, both in Guyana and outside of Guyana, to advance that program. But I would not say that we are going to be getting any handouts from international organizations or foreign countries. We have to use our own expertise. We have to engage the private sector and embark on it just as if we're going into timber or sugar or rice production. There's no gift here. We have to take responsibility and ownership for this program. That's the lesson I brought back.
The U.S. had announced a $10 million dollar
10 million?
Has Guyana been provided with or given any of this money? And
that's not serious money. That's not serious money. I do not think Guyana will put in a bid. As you would have read in the newspaper, the bids are open, but that is not enough seed money for the magnitude of project that we are envisaging. Guyana is the single largest CARICOM state. Guyana has a huge land area, and we have a population that is scattered all over our territory very thinly. We have a population density of only 3.5 person per square kilometer. It means that we have to have the ability to penetrate communities, villages in the hinterland and provide them with a renewable source of electricity. We have to make arrangements to exploit our hydropower potential. We have to look at wind farms along the coast. So the scale of providing a renewable source of electricity to Guyana is much greater than that in other CARICOM states. And I don't think we should look abroad for assistance. We can look for partners, we can look for cooperation, but we have to accept from now that the responsibility is ours. And this is a matter that the government must engage the nation and engage the private sector with.
So I see you can go then.
Additional questions?
Yes.
Mr. President, in relation to crime.
No. On the topic.
Yeah, okay, let her go. Let's hear about crime. No, let's hear about crime.
Yes, in relation to crime, there have been many concerns about what is happening in the country in terms of crime. I know there was Operation Dragnet and there was a security task force that was set up to look at it and so on. What more can the government do to assure citizens that law enforcement has this under control and everything is being done to ensure that they're safe?
Well, first of all, the figures are coming down. There has been a media frenzy, I admit, but some of the events which have been publicized are not preventable by the state. If a woman hires a hitman to kill her father, or if a man hires a hitman to kill his wife, these are interpersonal disputes which the state cannot be held responsible for. So we have to disaggregate the crimes that we've been talking about. If a security guard at the petrol station or at a hotel allows persons to come in to conduct a robbery, it's difficult to blame the state. So what is the state doing about it? We can't check every marriage register to see, every birth certificate to see, the relationships between families. So, first of all, the numbers are being reduced. We have implemented measures in the hinterland. The commander of the entire hinterland divisions, from 1, 7, 8, and 9, actually lives and works at Bartica now rather than Evelary. Those divisions will be further subdivided, so we have strong police divisional commanders in each one of those administrative divisions. We have carried mounted police into Region 9, Rupununi, so there are now more mounted policemen there. We are augmenting the strength of the police force. Overall, it's about 20% on the strength. We want to bring it up to strength. We have augmented the strength of the CID. So there are now more and better trained detectives, as you've noticed, and even our critics have accepted and acknowledged that crimes are being solved much more quickly than ever before. We have embarked on aerial patrols of the coastline, and as you can see from the news, nobody can say when last there was a piracy attack. So all of these measures have been introduced over the last 7 months, and they're supplementing Operation Dragnet, and Dragnet will continue right through to at least 1st of June, to the end of the 50th anniversary celebrations. So there have been small incremental changes, and I do regret that the media frenzy seems to have bowled people over. They feel that things are getting worse, but things are actually getting better.
Paul, if you have no other questions on the topic, you can go right ahead.
I just want to hit, sir, on the forensic capability aspect in crime fighting. You want to pronounce on that? Are you satisfied with that aspect? Is there any hounded proposals on the table to get that more advanced?
No, we are not satisfied, and the Minister of Public Security, Mr. Ramjatan, is working to have that laboratory operationalized. We have been in office for 11 months, and we have inherited a certain situation throughout the sector, the security sector. It has affected what is happening in the prisons. It has affected what is happening in our ability to investigate crimes. It's affected the spate of crimes which Zoisa reported, of which Zoisa spoke. Do not forget that we are coming at the end of a long period of intense violence. That is during the Troubles in this country, where a lot of, maybe hundreds of persons were killed. Many of the youngsters who witnessed those crimes in the early 2000s, 2003, 2005, and thereabouts, the era of the massacres, have now grown up. They've now grown up. Those persons who were, 6 and 7 years old in 2000 are now 23, 24 years old. So many of them might have witnessed some of these crimes, and there's now what I call a secondary impact, that many of those crimes were never investigated by the past administration. Even relatives of former Minister Satioso have approached me to get investigations into the crimes. So we mustn't assume that this crime situation suddenly came on the scene on the 16th of May 2015. It had been going on for a very long time, and we're now seeing the impact of those lawless years when we had phantom gangs and rogue cops and people bringing in computing equipment and drug traffickers, going about this country as if they were law enforcement officers themselves. So it's a very dark period, and some people seem to feel that these events did not have an impact. They had a very serious impact, and all of us are suffering from that impact now. So yes, we're doing a lot, not only for the laboratory, but as I said, the whole redeployment of the police force, the training of CID. As you know also, last September when I was at the United Nations, I had a meeting along with other Caribbean heads with Mr. David Cameron, the Prime Minister of Britain, and I asked for the Security Sector Reform Action Plan to be reintroduced. The previous administration rejected that plan. I've also engaged the British High Commissioner, and we have had visits from teams from the United Kingdom, and there is going to be a fresh approach to security sector reform. So all of these things are being done, and it's early yet to see the results, but we are working on putting all of these measures in place. It's been a short time.
Sorry you had to take so much time to deliberate there on crime, but I want to move on, sir. During
It's
your
important.
Yeah, I know, right? But it's important, yes. I want to just move on to some other issues. During your election campaigning, you spoke about traversing the length and breadth of this country. You've introduced the Meet the Public initiatives, but they seem to be centered around just main towns. There's some small communities across this country that are impacting GDP and farming communities and so forth that are seemingly neglected. On the ground, I'm hearing they're not seeing any government officials and so forth. Any plans in this regard to meet these communities, see their needs, and see how you can help them because they're impacting national development?
Again, it's a question of perception and maybe a question of the way news would be reported by various agencies. You can see me at Firish, you can see me at Bahacara, you can see me at various communities. This time tomorrow I'll be in Bartica. It is not correct. My ministers have been going out into their constituencies, and we could only wage the campaign, carry on the campaign for local government elections. People actually went out. I myself was out quite a lot. So it is not fair to say that, because I know that ministers and other political leaders had been going out during March, even if only for campaigning. So there was a high level of engagement. I know other issues have arisen, and one of my constant reminders to my colleagues is that we must learn the lessons from the people themselves by engaging with them. So more can be done, but I certainly have not neglected the outlying areas, and I've asked my ministers, who all have constituency responsibilities, to ensure that they continue to engage with their constituents, whatever it is, whether it's farming or whether it's riverine communities, the mining communities. And you can look at the record and you can see that the ministers have been engaging in all of the regions. Particularly, Minister Trotman has been going out quite a lot. Minister Patterson has been going out quite a lot. Minister Harman has been going out quite a lot. So the business of government cannot be effectively, operationalized by sitting here in town. We've had several outreaches. The Prime Minister himself has gone out to quarantine. There was an outreach there. There was an outreach in Essequibo Coast, the outreach in Rupununi. So look at these outreaches. They've all taken place this year.
Mr. President, on the question of Mr. Harman, are you at all satisfied, are you at all concerned that Mr. Harman's visit to China has tarnished the image of the government and left a lot of concerns about shadowy deals and issues of that nature?
Well, I'm certainly convinced that the Minister of State was not involved in any shadowy deal. As I said, after he returned, even during his trip overseas, I had taken certain initiatives, and I asked that before he engaged the media, he engaged the cabinet, and he presented various statements, one concerning the GT&T operation with NISL, and others concerning the circumstances under which he appeared in the aircraft, traveling from city to city in the PRC, the People's Republic of China. Those reports were presented to the cabinet, and cabinet is satisfied, and they were public. So yes, I'm satisfied that the conduct of the minister was above board, and that the cabinet and the public have been informed.
There's a view or a perception in the public that your long-standing friendship with Mr. Harman prevents you from taking any disciplinary action or viewing the issue in a good light. How would you respond to that?
Well, the cabinet is a collegiate entity. We are not, we are individuals, yes, but decisions are taken collectively. And I would say that in every instance that has been referred, there is frank discussion, and at the end of it, there is consensus, and that is how we proceed. I'm not a dictator, and there is no single instance in which something comes before cabinet that only one person speaks or only one person has the way. So I would say that regardless of my friendship with Mr. Harman, we have a good team, and it's the team spirit that carries the cabinet through. We operate as a team.
You made mention of the GT&T shares. There seems to be conflicting information as to where this money is. Can you provide some information on what exactly is happening with this money?
You have to ask Mr. Ramata where the money is. I don't know where it is. I would like to find out. But the money went missing under the previous administration. And it is certainly missing, and that's what Mr. Harman's mission was all about. We're trying to find out ourselves. You know.
Sir, in the same vein, the forensic audits, they are bringing to the fore various revelations. What pointed are you doing with these revelations? Is there any structured format you're moving forward to address them, or are you just using them to restructure in terms of your governance of the country?
Well, you're right in a way. These reports inform government policy. We're not ignoring them, but at the same time, some of them may not be sufficiently grave to bring the house down. They are guides for corrective action to ensure that A, there's no recurrence, and B, to ensure that in cases where there's culpability, unlawful behavior, that persons could be brought before the courts, and if they're found guilty of having committed offenses, they could be punished. So it has to be looked in the light of both correction and preventing a recurrence. Yeah.
Infrastructural development, Mr. President. 50 years later, we're still saddled with the East Bank Road that is ailing. I know the Caribbean Development Bank is proposing some funding for some major infrastructural projects. When could we see these infrastructural projects moving? You talked about matching the East Coast with the hinterland. We need a major road hitting from the East Bank to the East Coast, because all these things are needed to really impact and move development to a new level. When are we going to see some things moving?
Frankly, this administration has had to reevaluate the infrastructure plan. The plan is now national, it's not coastal, it's not Region 4 alone. We want to see highways going into the hinterland, particularly from Region 10 to Region 9, that is from Linden to Lethem. We want to see roads in Region 8 and Region 7 going into the areas that produce our gold, diamonds, and timber. And also these would enable law enforcement officers to go into those areas. So the Minister of Public Infrastructure is looking at the national plan, not just a coastal plan. And I expect that by the middle of the year, he'll be prepared to speak to the public about that. But right now, the plans are under evaluation. We have not thrown anything out of the window, particularly the East Coast, East Bank bypass. But that had to be realigned because of our occupation of the Ogle campus for education purposes, because the alignment would have passed through Ogle campus. So we are working on a national plan. And of course, that national plan has to be financed, and that perhaps is one of the drawbacks. But at the end of the day, we want to see highways not just creating a network on the coastline, but also penetrating the hinterland.
Our Jubilee celebration, Mr. President, are you satisfied with how things are going? And with respect to the Durban Park initiative, it's a temporary facility. And there are questions as to, why would you spend $150 million on a temporary thing? Why not invest and do something permanent? How would you respond?
Well, it is not temporary. Maybe some structures are temporary because they could be dismantled and moved to other areas. But that is going to last forever. That Durban Park is a public place. We hope to see cultural concerts, religious concerts. We hope to see outreaches by various ministries, health outreaches. We hope to see young people playing sport, flying kites. It's a public place, and we need more open, safe public places that people can go at evening and weekends and holidays and enjoy themselves. So the park itself is going to remain a park. Maybe some of the structures could be redeployed.
But just the stands, Mr. President, the stands, they would be removed, and a lot of money is being spent to construct them and then move.
They're not going to be destroyed. They're going to be dismantled and reestablished elsewhere.
Thank you.
Okay.
Paul, you have the last question.
Yes, Mr. President, the job bank has been proposed. On the streets, we know the statistics with regard on employment. What exactly your government plan to whip up or to use as a campaign strategy to, get people moving? I know there's need for the hydroelectric issue to really advance manufacturing, but we have a lot of men folk who's on the streets unemployed. You spoke about the job bank, you spoke about the statistical authority and all these, needed stuff to really trigger employment and trigger, economic development. What are some of your plans in this regard?
Well, we want to help people to help themselves. The government certainly does not have jobs to give out to people, in the police force, the army, the public service, or the corporations. We want to ensure that more people stay in school and qualify. We want to ensure that more employment opportunities are open in the private sector, especially at the level of the villages and other rural and hinterland communities, by encouraging young people to get involved in agro-processing. And we want to encourage more entrepreneurs. People, even while they're at school, would be encouraged to go into business rather than to look forward to jobs in the state sector. So these are some of the directions that we're moving towards. And now that we are taking more decisive steps in the area of renewable energy, we expect that a lot of young people will be going into those fields and into even small areas like solar plant, learning to establish and erect some of these structures, servicing them in the hinterland. We feel that Guyana is a promising country with a lot of opportunities, but we need to change from the mindset that government owes people employment and create in the minds of young people the desire to go there and work and do well. And I believe Guyana has probably got greater prospects than other Caribbean countries in that regard.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, journalist. That has brought us to the end of this week's edition of The Public Interest. Do join us next time. Have a blessed day, Guyana.